Hello and welcome to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. Rachael is a speaker, inspirational author, and an overcomer. As Rachael is walking through her own journey of grief, she's challenging others to persevere and overcome their own circumstances. Find out more at rachelflick.com. Here now is your host, Rachael Flick.
Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. I'm doing part 2 with my guest, Michele Cushatt. Michele is a mother of 6. She is a wife. She lives in a blended family. She has adopted children. She is a cancer survivor and someone who is experiencing chronic pain. She has lost precious people in her life. And the most beautiful thing that Michele brings is her authenticity and the strength of surrender and submission in the midst of hardship. And I'm really excited to pick this back up with you today, Michele. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, goodness. I'm so privileged to be here for a second time. I so enjoyed our time last week.
It was incredible. And I just felt the presence of the Lord through your words in such a powerful way. The Lord was using you to heal my heart, and I look forward to more of what he has to do for me and for our listeners, because obviously this isn't my private conversation.
I keep forgetting there's other people listening. We have to, we're just talking honestly, like we're just in a room. So that should give you all encouragement if you're listening, that there's, like, we aren't holding anything back. We're just laying it all out there.
This is the inside scoop. Okay, so Michele, I want to quote Jim Collins to you. He is the author of Good to Great. He just released Entrepreneurship 2.0. He's kind of a big deal. He's,
Yes, he is.
And Jim has a quote that I would like to hear your perspective on. Jim says, "Uncertainty is chronic, instability is permanent. Disruption is common, and we can neither predict nor govern events. We are living history, surprise after surprise after surprise. And just when we think we've had all the surprises for a while, along comes another one. There will be no new normal. There will only be a continuous series of not normal episodes, defying prediction and unforeseen by most of us until they happen."
Well, 100%. I think first of all, those of us who live in the United States of America or any kind of Western civilization there's so much privilege that we have, just being, we're some of the wealthiest people on the planet, right? We have access to so much help. And part of the American mentality is that I'm entitled to comfort, that I wake up every day believing that I'm entitled to a good day and entitled to what I want, what I need, when I want it, and when I need it. In other words, there's this illusion of control. That if I do A, B, and C, I can make my life what I want it to be. And that illusion of control feels really nice, but it's a load of garbage. It's just not real. It's a total illusion. And what we've seen happen this year in 2020 with COVID and everything else that's happened is it somewhat ripped the blinders off, right? COVID has revealed to us how little control we really have, how quickly our entire lives and world can change on a dime. And it's also revealed how poorly equipped we are to handle it, right? Because as Americans, we have this illusion of control, that my destiny, my life is within my control, so I can make it happen. And so as a result, we aren't very equipped. We don't have a good strategy or theology even to deal with pain and suffering and change and unpredictability, right? And the funny thing is Scripture says, Jesus said very clearly, in this world you will have trouble. I mean, there's just like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That is the guarantee. He never guaranteed the American ideal. He guaranteed trouble, right? So we should be waking up every day with the expectation that, you know what, life's not going to go according to plan. My kids aren't all going to turn out the way I want them to. My marriage is not going to be perfect. I can't keep everybody alive. I can't even control my own health. So one of the things, being a 3-time cancer survivor, before I got cancer the first time, I was a health nut. I ran half marathons. I did triathlons. I slept well. I rarely ever drank. I never smoked. I was one of the healthiest people alive. My kids would tell you that I eat more green things than anybody else that they know, right? And yet, in spite of all of that, the supplements, everything else that I did, I still have managed to be a 3-time cancer person, right? So, all of that to say is when we go through a year like this year, and COVID is so random in so many ways, right? All of a sudden, the blinders are off, and we have to face the reality that change is really the only constant. The unexpected, the unpredictable really is the only constant. And we have very little control.
I resonate with what you're saying about how healthy you were and how many great choices you made and how well you take care of your body. Maybe you have a few more brownies now because what the heck, right? Like YOLO.
Yeah, I'm all about the YOLO now. I'm like 49 years old and I'm lucky to be here. So I'm going to eat the brownies and have the wine. So.
Micah was known in the office as Mr. Officer Safety. And he always wore his vest and he always cared for the needs of his fellow officers. And he had at least 27 backup plans for how an arrest would happen and how he was going to mitigate any factors that would challenge their safety. And despite all of those things, and despite that they did a great op that day, despite that it was so well planned, that they had so much skill, he still died. Mm-hmm. And, the what ifs and the regrets and things like that still haunt some of the people that he worked with because they felt like, if I'd just done this, if I'd done that, I could have controlled this. I could have prevented this pain. I could have, somehow avoided this. But what you said, in echo of what Jesus says, is that in this world you will have trouble and we're not guaranteed health. We're not guaranteed a happy marriage or a relationship. I can't echo enough what you said about, your family and your life and your health and all the things. And even what you put into your own body didn't save you.
Totally. And you know what? We also need to kind of reframe a little bit we think what we want is health and safety and longevity and all this kind of stuff. Okay. And I get that. We're not masochists. We don't want to invite pain and suffering, okay? So we think that's what we want. But I want you to think about this for a second. What God has done, and it is 100% Him, trust me, because I was flat on the ground, ready to be done with life, okay? So it's 100% Him that I'm even standing here able to talk to you. But what God has done with my voice and my ministry, as broken as it is, could never have been accomplished without the suffering. Like you said in the last episode, there's a certain amount of pain cred. I would never wish it again. I have no desire to go through it, but I still have nightmares at time of going through it. It was that bad. The physical pain and suffering was that bad. So again, not a masochist, but I cannot deny what God has accomplished through the pain. And I cannot deny that it could not have been accomplished any other way. And that said then, okay, one of my favorite preachers is Dr. Timothy Keller. I read a lot of his books and his podcasts. He's just one of the many voices I listen to. But he says, God gives us at times what we would have asked for if we knew what He did. And I find it so fascinating. Not that we'd ever want pain. I'm not saying that God causes horrible things to happen. That's not what we're talking about. But think about that. If God had asked me 10 years ago, Michele, would you like to be able to have the opportunity to speak into the lives of a lot of people who are suffering, to encourage them and to let them know that I'm with them? Would you like that? I would have been, sign me up.
Right.
I would have asked for it. I would say, yes, please, give me the opportunity. But it's kind of like He said to Peter, do you know what you have to go through in order to have that? Do you know the cross you're going to need to bear? And so I would never want it or ask for it, but the reality is what God has done. It is so far beyond anything I could ask or imagine that at the same time, I wouldn't want it taken away. The lack of my healing has been the conduit of so many other people's healing. And on top of that, the lack of my physical healing has been the means of my faith healing. my faith is no longer, well, let's put it this way. My faith is no longer as dependent on my circumstances as it used to be. And to me, that's the greater healing. There's a story in the New Testament when Jesus is talking to Peter, and this is before Jesus's arrest and crucifixion, and Peter's talking to him, and Jesus looks at Peter and says, Peter, Peter, he said, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you as wheat. In other words, really bad things are coming, Peter. It's not going to be easy for you. And then he says, I have prayed for you, Peter. Now, when I read that, I'm like, okay, this is God in the flesh, Jesus. Bad circumstances are about ready to happen to Peter, and Jesus is praying for him. So I want to know, what's Jesus praying for, right? What's he praying for? Is he praying for Peter's safety? Is he praying for Peter's relationships to maintain strong? Is he praying for Peter to go to church every Sunday? Is he praying for, what is he praying for? And Jesus goes, I have prayed for you, Peter, that your faith would not fail.
Mm.
And when I read that and I realized, I think that the greatest thing at stake for me is my health, whether or not I survive cancer. I think the greatest stake in my life is whether or not my marriage makes it. Or I think the greatest thing at stake right now is whether or not my kids get good grades or do okay with their friends or graduate from college. In our minds, those are the worst things that could happen. Those are the biggest stakes, the most important things. And Jesus is like, I have prayed for you. And this is what I prayed for, because this is the thing that matters more than anything else. I have prayed that your faith would not fail.
Mm.
And from that standpoint, then when I look at my life and I look at the losses and the pain and the suffering, God answered that prayer. My faith has not failed. And it's not to any credit of me. It's to the credit of the God who made me, that came and rescued me. And that is the real miracle. That's the real healing. It doesn't diminish the losses. I still cry my eyes out on a regular basis at what I've lost. It's not easy. I still have bad days. But the reality is that there is a greater healing that God brought by solidifying my faith that I would have asked for if I knew what he did.
I love the circling back around to what you said last week, that God is relentless in grace. He is relentless in pursuit of us and for our healing. And that is such a full circle example of Jesus praying for Peter that he would not lose his faith. And I was talking to Mike a couple weeks ago about my story with Micah, and I just had a knowing in my spirit that something was coming, that there was something that the Lord was making me ready for. And the thing that came to my mind for prayer over and over was, Lord, find me faithful. Mm-hmm. That when you try me to see what is in my heart, let me be found faithful. And I know that in no means will Micah's death be the last hard thing. And part of our resilience is normalizing that. Normalizing that hardship, but also seeing that the Lord will intervene to bring meaning, which provides a cushion in our pain.
That's so key. That's the second part of that charge that Jesus made to Peter. He said, I have prayed for you that your faith would not fail. And then he goes on to say, and when you've turned back, strengthen your brothers. Mm. In other words, he's prayed that his faith wouldn't be failed. And then he goes, and when? So his confidence was, you're going to be okay. You're going to turn back. But remember, it's not just about you. Strengthen your brothers. Use what you experience, that strength and faith, the pain, the loss. Use it to encourage the greater body of Christ, your brothers. And that's where we find meaning, like you said. That's really so key. We need to find meaning in these things and find ways to make it more than just about us. It's not just about our pain. It's about our collective pain, the collective human experience, and the God who determined to save every one of us.
Mm. The Reverend Michele Cushatt, ladies and gentlemen, he is bringing the word today, and I am just sitting here soaking in it, just receiving affirmation of so many things that the Lord has brought into my story, and I know that he is bringing to you all, and whatever hardship that you are going through right now, that this is a timely word. The Bible talks about the Rhema word of God, and that's the word that just hits you right in that spot, right when you need it. And we are all experiencing such trial and hardship, and I don't have to remind any of you of that, but to hear Michele bringing these words that are so on point. Oh my goodness, it is hitting me right between the eyes.
Me too, girl. I mean, that's why I do podcasts and interviews like this, is because every time we decide to stand up on our faith, not anything we've done, but stand on the faith that God has rescued within us and share our stories like this, it redeems the losses just a little bit. That's why you're doing the podcast in part, right?
Absolutely.
It brings meaning and redeems the losses just a little bit. It's just another way that God brings to life the valley of dry bones.
Right. Softens the blow, encourages the healing process. Absolutely. I feel strengthened and empowered by the meaning that God has brought out of the pain in my life. And I feel like I have more to offer in ways that I never would have expected. Just like you said, if the Lord would have said, are you going to impact people, for the kingdom and bring healing and support for people who feel otherness, right? Pain brings that sense of otherness. And can you come and stand beside them and link arms with them and let them know that they are not alone? You would have said yes, but then it's a good thing he doesn't show us the path to what we're signing up for sometimes, because that pain and that instability, I think that that's a tremendous amount of what we're experiencing right now is just fear of the unknown.
Yes. Oh, it's terrifying. That's why we need presence more than a plan, or, that's why really, we think, and this kind of adds to what we're saying, we think peace is a product of our circumstances, but peace is really a person. That's why Jesus was called the Prince of Peace, right? So we really need that presence, that consistency, rather than just a timeline of this is how everything's going to go. That actually wouldn't make us feel better. That would just make us more control freaks. We need somebody who already knows the way, who already has a plan, and that's just right next to us, walking us through it.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yes. And there's such comfort that Jesus said that every way you could suffer, every way you could be tempted, he experienced that. We don't have a high priest who doesn't know what we're going through, but that he is the word of God in flesh. And that has comforted me. And that in that place where I really hit a wall last year and it was dark, and I've given this example before, that it felt like I was living in an electric chair and I couldn't die. Mm-hmm. The pain was so tormenting. And I just was like, you are either going to meet me here in a way that I can put my finger on, or I am out. Mm-hmm. I do not want to live in this way anymore. And in my healing process, the thing that resonated with me so deeply was that Jesus said, even when you don't have answers, you have me.
Yeah.
And it was just a sweet whisper, and that feeling of him wrapping his arms around me, and that I truly was not alone in my suffering. And yeah. I think that, you were talking about that surrender, that submission, that you reach the end of yourself.
So hard. It's so hard to get there.
Right? You didn't have any strength to pull yourself out. You were reading, theological books to rescue your thoughts about God, he came and found you. And I think
I had a similar moment after my divorce. So, divorce in my mind as a 24, 25-year-old was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. And I just remember I was so devastated. I mean, it really is its own kind of death, right? But this is a person that doesn't want you anymore. So it's just, oh my gosh, I was so devastated. And I was so angry at God. I was so angry because I had been one of those Christian girls who did the whole 1980s save yourself for marriage and, be super committed. I was married to youth group. And that was my whole life. Right. And so I married a pastor. I had done everything right, and somewhat self-righteous, wasn't I? But I had done everything right. So I was ticked, and God hadn't done his part. God hadn't delivered. I did my part. He hadn't done his part. And I was so angry that for a season of about 6 to 12 months, I didn't want anything to do with God. I just did not want anything to do with him. And I realized at some point in time that life without God is just as hard. but a whole lot lonelier.
Mm.
And there was a night on my bed, I remember, I was in my 20s, very dramatic, but crying, just like weeping. And I cried out, basically I was crying out, Uncle, but I said, fine, God, I need you more than I need to understand.
Mm.
And I was too young, didn't have any kind of insight to really realize the profundity of that statement. It was like crying uncle, but I look back on that and I said, yes, I do. I do need him more than I need to understand. And now after 25 years since then, that's been even more solidified. The truth is we think what we want is explanations and reasons and understanding, but what we really want is presence.
That's so beautiful. And, for the drama of your 24-year-old self, I'm seeing that meme where he's got his feet kicked up on the desk, like, I'll allow it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk too about this idea of wanting to understand this God that seems to be beyond us, because we think we want him to be tangible. We want to be able to see him, understand him. We want to be able to basically put him in the box and be able to comprehend him. And the reality is a God who we could comprehend would be a God that's far too small.
Yeah.
And so there is some comfort and confidence. It took me a while to get there, but there really is a greater sense of comfort having a God that is bigger than I can unravel.
Mm.
It feels scary because it's unknown. But the alternative is having a God that I could pick apart, and I'm not big enough to be my own God, right? And so there is there's actually significant comfort, reassurance, and safety in a God that is so far beyond my capacity to understand that I can trust him.
Mm-hmm.
And from that standpoint, whenever I get in a place where I get into this circular argument of not understanding why things happening, I come back to that and say, oh yeah, that's right. I want a God that's bigger than anything that I can unravel. All right. So that means I can be okay with not knowing why.
And that is such a mind-blowing tension.
Yes.
Of the now and the not yet.
Mm-hmm.
Of who God has revealed himself to be and who he has not yet shown himself for us, and we would live in this tension, and that not only would we live in it, but that we would embrace it and allow it to teach us and strengthen us and refine us. And we have to surrender to that. I mean, that's a theme that I'm hearing running alongside of this, is that allowing pain to they say that there's a statistic out there that when people are under the influence and they have a car accident, they have less damage than oftentimes people who are not, because they're not resisting the impact or the seatbelt or the airbags. And there is an analogy there with pain that the more you fight it, the more it hurts.
Yes.
It's scary. It's so scary to surrender to it. I don't know how long this grief wave is going to last. I don't know what your resources to me are going to look like. I don't know how I'm going to feel your presence or when you're going to show up to me, but I'm just going to allow myself to relax and feel what I'm feeling and trust that you are who you say you are, and you will do what you say you will do.
Totally. And at the same time, and this would be interesting to talk about, not beat ourselves up for being sad.
Right.
There is good reason to mourn.
Yeah.
And this life gives us very good, very valid reasons to have grief and sadness and to mourn and even be angry. And that's okay. And sometimes we think that faith and our questions are mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And yet our questions and our doubts actually can create a deeper faith as long as we see them through and follow them through and keep digging and pressing forward, right? The same is true with joy and grief. They are not sequential, they're simultaneous. It is possible to be grateful and thankful and deeply sad and angry at all the same time.
Yes.
And to allow ourselves as in progress, rescued and redeemed humans who are loved by the heart of the Father, allowing ourselves to not feel like we have to appear more strong and faithful and optimistic than we are, but to say, wow, it's like Jesus, that statement, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. It's joy and grief simultaneously.
Together. And it's going to be that way throughout our lives until we cross over to heaven and he wipes every tear from our eyes.
Some of our best worship is done in a place of mourning. I used to always, when I thought of Easter, I only thought of the resurrection. And now I'm completely in love with Good Friday and the crucifixion. And the reason is because I really feel like, obviously the resurrection is the exclamation point. It's the good news. It's the fact that life is going to be on the other side of this death. But there is communion that happens at the foot of the cross and in the Garden of Gethsemane. That's the communion. That's where the presence of God met the great need of humanity and mingled together in the blood of Jesus. I mean, that's beautiful right there. And to understand that being at the foot of the cross, to understand what God paid to redeem Micah and redeem cancer and redeem the grief and losses and the things that your kids lost by not having their father and all this, that's what it cost. And God was willing to pay the full cost of it because he was so grief-stricken himself by the condition of his children. And right there, that place of mourning, I think when we don't allow ourselves to feel what we feel, like you said, we neglect a very critical part of worship. It's like we are cheapening the cost that was paid to redeem us.
And that is the gift of suffering that people in the pain club who choose surrender to the presence, the healing presence of the Lord. Like, you don't want anybody to know what it is that you're talking about.
Oh, I would never wish it on a million people, but it's so true, so true. But at the same time, it's like, and I don't always feel it, by the way. It's not like every day I walk around on a cloud of insight. It's not like that. I still want to throw plates and scream and yell, and I have some really bad days and bad attitudes at times and all this. I'm human, it's just the way it is. But there is just, there's something beautiful about people in places of mourning who say, I still choose to believe.
You can't fight with that story, Michele. Like, that's the thing, that when you come to the table and you have pain cred and you say, I still choose Jesus and I still believe in him, that's a faith that moves mountains.
Yeah. And the funny thing is I wouldn't believe him if he wouldn't have chose pain himself. It's so powerful to me that he chose to actually walk our experience. I mean, who would willingly do this, right?
Oh,
who would willingly put on flesh and experience what we experience every day? And the Bible says very, very clearly, he does it because he loved us. It's that whole, for God so loved the world. I mean, love drives all of it, right? It drives all of it. He wasn't just trying to beat us into submission or demand our obedience. He did it for love, right? And all that he does is done for love. And that's mind-blowing to me. I don't love anything that much.
Me neither. True story. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I have just begun to call those the treasures found in darkness.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. The secrets in hidden places, the treasures in darkness. Oh yeah, I love that verse. And it's true. There are riches in hidden places and secrets in darkness that you will not find anywhere else. And if somehow, for those of you who are listening and in a place of deep suffering, you don't have to go out and find it, but just keep your eyes open.
Right.
It's going to be there.
Right. And give it time. I mean, it's amazing to me to look back on certain markers, like you talked about, looking back at how far in your faith and the maturity that you've gained after your divorce, and that you kind of tease yourself about how dramatic you were when divorce is a death of a relationship.
Yeah.
I call divorce the marriage funeral because...
Oh, it's awful. And then when you do it as a pastor's wife, it's so shaming. There's so much humiliation.
Yes, absolutely. And yet here you are, and look at where the Lord has brought you in all that has come in your life. And literally, I just imagine like you pouring forth gifts and pearls of wisdom and just coming out of your mouth one after the other. And I want to be selfish and just sit and soak in it. I don't want to wrap up this episode, but can I ask you one more question?
Yes.
So as a woman who has experienced many losses of many different kinds, and sometimes, you were giving the timeline, it was just like one after another. How do you accept the reality that instability is chronic, and yet also not live in dread, waiting for the other shoe to drop?
Yeah. I'll give you just some practical tools that I use, because I think practical is more helpful for this question than anything theoretical or abstract. Humor is really important to me. Learning the ability to laugh at what you can laugh at. It's like, I shake my head. Finding creative ways to just inject that into my life is important. Not to take myself too seriously, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's been really critical for me is to make sure I have plenty of space and margin, because difficult circumstances take a lot out of your brain and your heart and your body.
Yes, they do.
And so I'm not very kind to myself. I push myself pretty hard. And so I'm slowly learning how to be more kind to myself and to allow myself space to be able to process and heal from these things that are so significant. I mean, things as practical as it's absolutely a priority to me to get good sleep every night, because I'm not going to be able to handle the unexpected that comes tomorrow unless I take really good care of my body and my heart and my mind today.
Mm-hmm.
Even reminding myself, well, here's another practice that's important to me: to intentionally live outside of the American reality. I intentionally spend time working with and talking to people that live in other countries where suffering is a daily reality, and reminding myself that this is not a guarantee. But I have the fact that I'm in a home with a roof and food on my table is an extraordinary gift. But working really intentionally to have more of a global perspective on the reality of human suffering across the globe is so important for me, to remember that change and difficulty and hardship is a reality. And if I happen to get through a day without that, that's a gift in and of itself. I mean, there are people that are fighting extraordinary obstacles just to get a glass of water today, right? It sounds silly, but it's so important to have that perspective when you look at your own life, because again, pain can be the loudest voice in the room. It makes you feel separated and alone. And it also, I'm going to say this gently, makes us very self-consumed.
Mm-hmm.
And the more self-consumed we are, the more angry and entitled we feel about our life, right? And so having some perspective, listening to the pain of others, being aware of more of a global picture of pain and suffering and losses helps to shed some necessary light and perspective on my own reality.
That's so practical. That's so helpful. Maintaining that margin, getting good sleep, realizing that other people don't live with even clean water.
I mean, think of the countries where literally people are dying every day. One thing that helped me with my cancer diagnosis, for example, is knowing that there's so many countries where the lifespan was less than what my age was when I was diagnosed. Like, they don't even have a lifespan beyond 39. And I was sad because I was diagnosed young. And I'm going, I've already lived past the lifespan in a lot of countries. So let's keep this in perspective.
That is that's huge, that perspective.
Just remembering. And then, the other one is just this practice of, back to Jesus saying, in this world you will have trouble. Everything that we have right now is a gift. It's not, we don't deserve any of it, right? We don't deserve any of this. It's a gift. What we have is a gift. The fact that you and I have children, that's a gift. Doesn't feel like it some days, but right? But those are just some of the basic practices that I do, trying to help, when the pain days are bad or when the losses feel significant, more significant, just to keep in perspective of, okay, that's part of this experience. That's part of this life.
I'm going to be honest with you, Michele, that I'm struggling with feeling like this was not enough time. So for people who are feeling what I'm feeling and they want to continue to connect with you and get more of your resources and your wisdom, what are some of the recent things that you've done and where can they find you?
The easiest way to find me is my website. So it's michelecushatt.com, 1 L in Michele, 2 T's in my last name, Cushatt. I also have a YouTube channel where I just released a 15-episode podcast that goes along with the book. So lots of video and audio. All of that's on my website as well. I have social media accounts, although part of my practice of getting grounded this year has been stepping back from social media a little bit. But my website has all of that. So if you go to michelecushatt.com, you can find any links to any of those things.
That's perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes so that you guys can find it after you're done with this amazing episode. Michele, thank you so much for the honor of your time. This has been so rich and fulfilling and healing from my own heart. And if it does half as much as it did for me, as it does for our listeners, that's going to be a huge win. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you too. I mean, it's healing for me too. That's the beauty of this. We heal together until we're finally home.
Until we're home, heaven and home. I love that so much. Thank you guys for being here with us today on this episode, part 2 with Michele Cushatt on the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. Look forward to more great content after Christmas. And so between now and then, I hope y'all have a wonderful holidays and that you are able to find joy in the midst of a difficult season and that you are able to get some rest and follow some of Michele's ideas for margin and sleep and perspective.
You've been listening to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. To find out more, go to rachaelflick.com. While you're there, you can book Rachael for your next speaking engagement. Her inspiring message will be sure to engage and touch the heart of your audience at your next conference, church event, or business function. Go to rachaelflick.com to book her today. While you're online, you can discover more information about all of the platforms that this podcast is on. Also, be sure to click on the social media icons at the top of the page, and you will be directed to Rachael's social media sites. If you listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, we would appreciate if you would subscribe and leave us a review. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time for another edition of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick.